Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Business Innovators Radio. This is your host, Constant Taylor. Today, we have a very special guest on the show, and they are going to share some very exciting information with us. So, if you're looking to increase your personal and professional effectiveness, then you've come to the right place. Our special guest today is Karla Brandau. Karla has been speaking professionally for over 30 years, and the content that Karla primarily speaks on is mental attitudes, the power of choice, self-determination, and personal productivity. She also speaks on time management. Karla has spoken both nationally and internationally and is based out of Atlanta. Karla has a new book coming out called Discretionary Effort Leadership, The Producer's Mindset. Karla, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Constant. I'm delighted to be here and share this time with you and with your listeners.
And we are very glad to have you here. What I'd like to do is start the show by asking you if you could tell the listeners a little bit about your business and how you help them improve their effectiveness.
I would be glad to do that. I am a teacher by choice. I have an education degree, and in 1986, I discovered the speaking and training field and became enamored with teaching adults. And so I specialize in taking complex thoughts and theories, and then I break them down and make them easy to understand for people in my audiences that I have spoken to. And what I want them to do is kind of rise above the average, and I want them to become this elite circle of achievers. And so I think in doing that, I started out with the book that I wrote called Wake Up the Winner Inside. And as you said in the introduction, it was about personal choice and self-determination, because we all have that within us. It's kind of a seed in there. We all want that. We're goal-setting entities. And so that's one of the basis of the keynotes that I give. And another one that I was always involved with, and I'll let everyone in on a little secret about me, because when I was in junior high, I'm the girl that had the to-do list stamped on my forehead. Now, I don't know, Constant, did you know kids like that?
I do, and you're actually speaking to one.
Oh, and so you understand what I mean.
I do.
So as you understand the power of choice and self-determination, you realize that you have to be a good time manager to reach your goals. And so when I started teaching these two topics, I began teaching teams, and I saw the need for leadership on the teams. I saw some of the breakdowns, and this led me into doing some 4-quadrant personalities with them. And as we went into the 4 quadrants of personalities and taught them about behaviors and motivators, and what I like to say is that I help people depuzzle human behavior because it can be pretty complex, you know.
Absolutely.
And that led to the book that's coming out shortly, Leadership. And this is a culmination of the many, many years that I have been in the speaking and the consulting business and have been working with people and audiences, and what discretionary effort focuses on. And by the way, we believe, I have a co-author on this, Douglas Ross, and by the way, we believe that this is the new trend for 21st century leadership. Because we've been through, you go in cycles when it comes to training. I think you've experienced that yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had a lot of different leadership topics. And now what's happening is people use engagement a lot, but I think engagement can only go so far, because people can be engaged in their work, but that doesn't mean that they're giving discretionary effort necessarily. They might be engaged because they like the company or they like the people they work with, and they contribute. They do their jobs, and they get a paycheck. But what we're talking about here is that when we talk about discretionary effort, is that most people in organizations just perform to the level where they get the paycheck. They're engaged enough to do that. But we want to take it a step further and say, if the managers can learn how to relate to the employees and how to treat them and how to, we have 5 levels of the pyramid, and if they can conquer those levels of the pyramid with their relationships and their employees, then they will be getting discretionary effort on a daily basis, and that's what's going to make them competitive in the marketplace. That's what's going to make their company grow exponentially, is when they're using the brain power of all these people that they've hired. Because, Constant, you know that we don't hire people for their brawn anymore, necessarily. I mean, there's still some jobs out there. But most of the time, we have bright people that work for us. And if you can get a hint for how to engage them in this discretionary effort and tap into their wonderful brain power that they have, then, and their creativity that naturally comes with that, then your company can't help but grow.
So how do you, and like you said, you're good at taking complex subjects and breaking them down. How do you take something such as discretionary effort and apply that so that you get a noticeable improvement within the organization?
Well, it has to start with the leader, and I'll give you just a little short example here. I was doing some work for a school, and the principal that hired me to come in there and work with his leadership team, I was explaining the leadership levels to them, which are, first of all, you have to establish the work environment of integrity and trust. Then you have physical safety and well-being. You have to be concerned about the employees. In other words, they have to feel safe in their environment. Or they're spending all their energy looking over their shoulder and making sure they're safe in their environment. And you have to be concerned about their well-being, because they don't just come in and punch the clock, and they're not computers. You know, they don't run like that. They're not R2-D2. And then you have to socially accept them, and then you get to emotional commitment. And at this point where we were going up and down the pyramid, now I must tell you that this principal is highly engaged with his school teachers, and everyone wants to work for him. Does that tell you what kind of a man he is?
Sounds like he's a great leader.
Yeah, he's a great leader. And one of his senior advisors there at the school stopped me right there and said, "That's what's wrong." And she named a company down the road. She says, "That's what's wrong with that company, because they're trying to get people to emotionally commit, and they haven't done anything about acceptance of that person or the physical safety and well-being of that person." And so when the leader, and by the way, you know that's why people leave their company, is they don't like their direct manager. I think you've read some of those statistics, and it's really true. And in this environment, the economy is getting good, and people are looking around. I just heard a report the other day that companies are going to start hiring. They have it on their radar for 2016 to hire more people. In that environment, if you haven't done these things in this pyramid, your best people are going to jump ship. And when they do, you're left with some of the people that might be too afraid to leave, or they're engaged in their job because they like their people, but you're letting go that the brilliance or the creativity of these people that have worked for you if you're not following these steps. Because what you want them to do is, after they emotionally commit to your company, then you want them to rationally align, meaning that you have to have company vision, mission, goals, all the values, all of those things in place. And then the person looks around and says, I do enjoy working here. And I can align with where this company's going on an intellectual basis, as well as I like the people around me and what's happening. I'm going to stay here. And when you get to that point with the employees, then hopefully, and I must tell you, not everyone will arise to this level, but then you get to the highest level, which is authentic contribution. And at that level, people become so committed to your company and to the work, and they're rewarded. You have to make sure the reward system is set up there, but they're so invested in your company that on a daily basis, their creativity is coming out, and they're giving you ideas for solving problems and things, instead of just giving enough to get by or giving enough so that you don't fire them. But they're actually contributing like they're a partner even.
And you bring up a good point, partner. That was my next question. How does ownership play into the picture? When I have ownership of something, then I treat it like it's my own, like my baby, and I'm a lot more committed to it than if I don't.
Oh, yes. The ownership part of it is very important because that means that leaders want to give responsibility to them. They want to give them leeway to try and experiment. And in that authentic contribution at the very top of that pyramid, why we call it authentic contribution is because they authentically give you their best. And the leaders in the company then are saying, you know what, go try this. See if it works. And they cover them if it doesn't. It's like you're developing these entrepreneurs inside of the company because it's more and more evident all the time that one person doesn't have all the good ideas. One person can't drive it forward. There has to be a collaboration of all these bright people and the diversity of thought that comes in that makes the programs even better and brings out new products. And so it almost becomes like an entrepreneurial environment. If I do have one more story to share.
Sure.
I was teaching I've done some government work, and I've also done large companies like Motorola and Panasonic and Coca-Cola Enterprises and some of those. But I remember this experience that I had when I was doing some work at Fort Benning. And we're close to Fort Benning, being in Atlanta. And the man that I had lunch with after I had done a workshop and had done a keynote for them as well, he sat down with me and he said, Karla, you should see what happens to these young people when I bring them in the office and describe a project to them and then tell them this. If you take this, take it, make it your own, experiment, find a good way, find a good solution. If you succeed, I'll give you all the accolades. If you fail, I'll take the rap. Now, what does that do for an employee? I mean, it's a win-win situation, right?
Yeah, very empowering.
Yeah, and that's when you get to that authentic contribution. That's where you're releasing the creativity and the innovation in people, and people love that. I mean, who doesn't want to contribute and feel that they're valued in an operation?
Did he talk about the results that he achieved through that process?
He had good results. They were coming up with new solutions and with new ideas all the time, and as they tried them out, because the people just felt safe.
So let's step back for a moment. Where did you start, and what inspired you to get into the business that you are now with helping companies improve their engagement with employees and utilization?
It came out of a natural process of observation, of watching leaders. It came out of the process of coaching team leaders and coaching senior managers and eventually some of the executive team. By coaching them, I could see some of the problems. And it's not, people think that their company's unique, but when you see these problems and when you're trained to understand, then you see it all over. It's the same kind of confusion people have sometimes, and there's some basic principles that we're teaching them here that can solve a lot of relationship problems, you might say. And so it was a natural flow of what was happening in my life and how my career was growing to be able to observe all of these things.
How do you help with the team building aspect?
Team building, I love to do team building. And one of the main things we do is the personalities. I think I mentioned that earlier, but when you sit down with them and show them, and we do assessments with them and let them look at who they are from the assessment angle. And then you sit down with them in team building and you talk to them about, there's only maybe 20, 25% of the world that's just like you. The other 75% all think differently. And that's exactly what they do. They go, that's interesting. You mean that person sitting across from me isn't just crazy or stupid?
Right.
And what I've done with the personalities, too, in the 4 quadrants is, because there's lots of assessments out there with 4 quadrants, and I've used several with them. In fact, I use this Gallup Strength Finders 2.0 as well, because once you do the 4 quadrants, then the Gallup poll 2.0 goes deeper in those qualities and separates them out a little bit. So it's a really good fit there and a good mix. But I used the natural resources because I was doing quite a bit of companies in the green industry. And so we used the oak tree. How do you move an oak tree? It's pretty tough, isn't it? And we use the sunshine because those represent the quadrant of people that are happy all the time and that are optimistic. And then we have the power players, which I use the fire because those are the people that many, many times will rise to leadership positions because they're very directive. And especially they'll rise to leadership if they're combined with the yellow, which gives them huge verbal skills. And they have all of these huge verbal skills and also the persuasion of because when a red person says go, they go. People follow them. And the other element that we used was the water, because the other quadrant there, the 4th one, I call the blue water because they fill in all the crevices. They keep the history of the company. They're detail oriented. They're analytical. And so when you sit down in the team building and say, look, all these people have a place. People get it. They say, oh, I get it. I understand. And so it makes them easier to get along with. And they give each other the benefit of a doubt, which I find is huge. And then you go into some of the conversation skills with them. And, of course, that divides you into you can give conversation skills just between team members, or you can give them from the manager, the leader, to the employee. And all the time what you want them to do is solve misunderstandings with dialogue. Because instead of, I was in one company and literally they had no dialogue. If they got upset about someone, they just went to mediation. It's like, well, what is this? You mean you're not sitting down and talking? So there's simple things like that people probably might not even think about it. And you see how that is the culture of the company as well. That's in the culture. So that's what we're trying to do, is open people's eyes. And as you do the team building with people. Oh, by the way, then I have 2 really big activities that we do with them, called the Soaring Design Research Center, and then Working for the Bugaboos Factory. And those are each different in their own unique way, and they point out different things. But the things you talk about in there is how the 21st environment is like. If I have a skill, then I actually become the leader on the team because I have that skill. And so you understand how you collaborate better, how people can get together and have ideas. And one of the things I like to tell about that is when I served as the president of an association, I learned that it was my role to put ideas out on the table and then pull my ego back. Because there are so many ideas out there, and I found out that when I put my idea out there, invariably there were bright people around me who made that idea better. And so if leaders can get just that one point to value the input of these bright people that they have hired, and to listen to them and actually start to implement some of the things that they can suggest to them, wow. Their commitment to the company, authentic contribution, they all go up.
Huge impact. Now, we're actually out of time. With the remaining 20 seconds, can you please tell the listeners how they can get in contact with you or your organization if they would like to learn more about this very exciting information that you have?
Tell them to go to www.workplacepower.com.
Okay.
And I will give them power in their workplace.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Karla, for coming on the show. That was very, very powerful information that you shared with our listeners.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.